Moving everybody, and welcome to another episode of Stylish. I'm your host, Fuzz. Today's adventure brings me to the sugar city of Lautoka, where I get to speak to famed fashion designer Moira Solvalu of the label 8 Mountains. Join me for an entire episode of storytelling, of laughter, and of design. Today we're meeting Moira Solvalu, a well-known and well-respected Fijian designer. Her label is called 8 Mountains. Their motto is Imagine, Create, Believe. 8 Mountains was established on the runway of Fiji Fashion Week 2009 and is a contemporary fashion label that proves that if you can imagine it, then nothing is impossible. At the tender age of 11, Moira had already begun her journey to becoming a fashion designer, helping her mother with sewing and sketching designs. In 2009, she joined the industry as an emerging designer. So what is an emerging designer? Or noticed, growing in strength or popularity, becoming widely known or established. Things that are emerging are just being born, blooming, or they're reaching an adult or advanced state. Fashion designers, young or old, can fit into the classification of being an emerging fashion designer. Age is really not very relevant as an indicator. People or companies fall into this category if they are showing signs that they are geared up and look ready for growth. Some emerging designers are only showing signs that they are ready for progress, and others are already well on their way to the path of notoriety. In 2011, Moira and 8 Mountains joined the established designer category. A designer is recognized as established when they become widely popular and when they are able to own and operate their own retail business. In the span of just over a decade, between the years of 2009 to 2019, 8 Mountains has been able to release almost 30 different collections. The brand has won more than 10 different awards, including a major recognition during Fiji Fashion Week's 10th year anniversary, also being Moira's 10th year in the industry. Moira's career highlights include an appreciation for her established collection and her 8 Mountains retail store in New Zealand. And in case you were wondering, the meaning behind the unique name 8 Mountains is actually derived from Moira's surname, Solvalu, which in the Rotuman language literally translates to the number 8 and the word mountains. Moira's Rotuman heritage also plays a huge role in her design motifs and sustainability responsibility for her community. 8 Mountains is part of the Lachia Rotuma initiative, whereby 10% of her sales from her Hanua Lei, Hoi and Hanua collection goes towards preservation of the Rotuman culture and helping women entrepreneurs on the island. So let's meet Moira Solvalu. Well everybody, so we're here at the 8 Mountains head office in hot Lautoka. How do people live here?
We're used to it now.
There's no rain in Lautoka. It's very hot and sweet. And I'm sitting here with the incredible Moira Solvalu, who is the creative director and owner of 8 Mountains. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
So Moira has had a very successful career as a designer, and I wanted to come and catch up with you and just see how things have been going. You know, we don't often hear from the designers in the West. People seem to think that all the designers are based in Suva. How does that make you feel?
I feel special today. They drove all the way from Suva to have this interview, so yeah, it's a good thing to catch up to with Faraz and see what's latest with 8 Mountains, and who better to sell the brand than me.
Of course, absolutely. But before we start talking about 8 Mountains, I want the audience to get to know you a little bit better. So tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? What is it that you had a passion for when you were younger?
I grew up in Suva, and then my father, due to work, got transferred to the West. So we've been in the West since 85 or 87.
Wow,
so I consider the West home now. When I was 11, I had already wanted to start a business to do with sewing, because my mom, she was a tailor, and just watching mom work in her own production, it's a small scale one back in Nandera, I found that I could do something useful with my life, and I connected to the whole production process. Watching mom cut and everything, it inspired me.
Did you learn yourself at that age?
I learned. I used to sew all of the kids' wear for mom, and then as I grew older, then she allowed me to sew adult wear clothes and stuff. So menswear, I went into making shirts, but I'm not a professional with that. I know the whole work and what goes into making a garment, but I don't think you'd trust me to finish it myself. I don't have the patience. I can start something,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, can I get somebody to finish it? And that's why I have a really good team, and they assist with the whole production.
So what you sort of were excited by as a young person was the design element of
Yes.
it. So have you always been creative? Did you used to
Always.
paint and draw?
Yes. I was always the one with the fancy wand in my hand, and I always liked colors, but I stayed mostly with blacks and neutrals and stuff. I'm only just learning that the market loves colorful wear as well. So then I've started, the team laugh at me because every time there's a new production, I'm like, there's a black and gold going to happen in our collection, and they're like,
Black and gold is my favorite thing.
My
though.
favorite as well.
And you're wearing it so well today.
Yeah. And that's part of our color logo as well. It's a signature print for 8 Mountains. Black to remind us of where we started. At one stage we had nothing at all. And gold to remind us that there's always refinement in the process, and that we can continue going for gold, literally with fashion. So this is Marika. Marika manages the production of 8 Mountains, and so this is the room in which she works in, and I'll get Marika to explain how she takes the sample. This is the actual pattern sample, and then she cuts her final piece from here. So Marika, you want to explain how that process works?
Sure. Okay, so first of all we decide what size we're cutting, and then from the basic block pattern we put down our fabric, and then we decide what we envision the finished product to look like, make tweaks here and there to suit our vision, and then basically it's just following the pattern. Once we're done from this process, we take the sample pieces across to the seamstress, who then sews it, and then we have it tried on by a model.
Yeah, and sometimes this piece may not naturally work for all patterns, but this is the basic block pattern. Then from here we evolve into other designs as well based on this actual design prototype, and then move it to fabric. Sometimes the fabric may actually be may not be suitable to what we want to create, so sometimes the final piece we have to redo again, and so this is how it comes back into the office production center, and that's where Marika does a rework on it and takes it does all the refining on the main sample itself. So this is what we call the block sample, and that's the fabric itself. So from here it'll move, like Marika said, it'll move to the production manufacturing side, from production to manufacturing.
Stay with us. Coming up next, we learn how Moira's Ratuman heritage plays a part in her design process. So how far has your Ratuman heritage played a role in terms of your, I know that, 8 Mountains is a translation of your surname, right? Mm-hmm. So how much further has your Ratuman heritage played a role in your design process and your brand?
Well, it's quite, well, growing up, I love the colors that my mom and dad had. So they have the different district colors. I associated with the red, and so that my father's from Malhaha. Red is their color, so I loved red, and that's why you see it in the logo. I think you'll see it's, most of our logos are black on the background and red has the 8 mountains colors on it. That's the first base that I went into with logo, and then every print that we bring out has an aspect of Rotuma in it. So it's the legends of Rotuma, the old tales that they tell in Rotuma, so we relive them in and tell stories in our print. So most of our prints, they have certain names. The one I have on, it's the Hoi collection.
I was just about to ask, yes.
Yeah, so it has the flippers here, and this is the back of the turtle. And the Hoi collection comes from the legend of the turtles in Rotuma, and so that's from Motusa. So it's a tribute.
What is the legend?
The legend of the turtles was actually they had these 2 turtles in the island that had played a protective role over the reefs. So in terms of sustainability, I enjoyed going into that legend and reading about it and sharing it in our prints so that our next generation can know that animals played a huge role in sustainability of the reef in the islands. And it's also like 10% of this collection goes back to the Lache community, the Lache initiative. They help women on the island to actually harness and nurture fashion, arts, and preserve the culture. So we, in some small way, want to be able to give back.
And to maintain culture, that's really beautiful.
So usually in the design process, it usually starts with your inspiration, and we move from the inspiration. It could be fabric first. For designers like myself, I usually start with the fabric. It's really hard to find good fabric in Fiji, and so we need to find suppliers for that. So I start off with my fabric, and then I trend forecast and find out what's the latest trends in the world, and then from there we decide on what kind of samples we're going to make. So this is back to the production room to sort of see what type of styles. Usually in a production, in the production of a collection, you get at least 5 to 6 styles, and we try and stay basic with them. So then we come here and then we set it up here and do the sampling work. Then after the sampling work is done, it moves from there to the design, to the manufacturing side where the seamstresses work through the whole process. Then it comes back in here where we actually see the final product. So with trend forecasting, there's a risk for designers. Some trend, because there are many people who trend forecast in the world today. So for us, it's taking a risk as well as seeing how we can stay trendy with what's happening around the world. And we look at different design types, the different colors that come out in a new season. We usually forecast for summer because of the weather here in Fiji. So that's how we do our designing. Basically, the patterns, the block patterns, there can be like many. We can have at least for one collection there might be about 6 different patterns, and from there that's how we work out the different styles that we want to forecast or we want to showcase during Fashion Week. And so what Marika is doing here is she's actually cutting a flare that will be based on this dress. It's and then if you look at the colors, we have also trend forecasted the colors that we want to release this year. That too is with aqua and aqua metallics. So that's what you see here. And then we have the samples, and we have samples for kids wear all the way to men's wear. And whatever we sew or come out from 8 Mountains has a block type and a sample to it. So that's what you find hanging on the wall there. Apart from that, that's usually how we do a whole design process.
up after the break, find out how fashion shows have developed the 8 Mountains brand. Fashion shows not only give designers and brands a platform to show their collections, but also to establish a point of view and to communicate the rich stories that the brands are trying to tell. They celebrate the vision of designers and the work of ateliers. It's all about art, publicity, and prestige. Fiji Fashion Week has given designers a chance to show off a particular aesthetic, a particular mood, a particular feel or point of view. There are a number of fashion shows in the Pacific, either run by organizations or by individual designers themselves. Fiji Fashion Week is one such show, which has given designers a chance to show off a particular aesthetic, a particular mood, a particular feel or point of view. As a result, Fiji Fashion Week has been instrumental in creating a world-class event in Fiji that promotes Fijian and South Pacific fashion. Siblings Moira Solvalu John and David Solvalu are the driving force behind popular Fijian brand 8 Mountains. 8 Mountains is perfect for anybody as they create innovative and unique styles that are perfect on different body types. Each piece that they create tells a story, and their collections speak of fun, their roots, and their love of design. 8 Mountains produces designer wear and regularly showcases their products in Pacific fashion shows. With over 10 years in fashion, 8 Mountains is a renowned and well-established premium fashion brand in the Pacific. From the actual design graphics to the finished product, you are guaranteed exclusivity with a touch of classic Fijian pride. Established designer Moira Solvalu and sibling John Solvalu boldly represent their Polynesian and Fijian heritage through the recreation of Fijian motifs. This Fijian designer label always has a black and gold signature piece in every collection. Black represents the days when they had nothing but a dream, and gold to remind the siblings to forever be optimistic in a competitive industry.
What do you think the future is of the fashion show? So you yourself, you developed your brand throughout the years by showing collections and by receiving feedback and then improving collections. And I mean, would you agree that the fashion show, Fiji Fashion Week, for example, has been, instrumental in your development as a brand?
Every year, no one really knows unless you market yourself. Fashion shows is the fastest way as well.
Absolutely.
The platform allows for different designers and especially those emerging ones to come out and show what they have to offer in terms of style and fashion. So over the years, we've always showcased on Fashion Week. I think 2020 we thought of resetting ourselves as well. I had looked into different business opportunities, and as a brand I wanted to rest for 2020, and then COVID came around and totally rested us.
Like a coma.
Yeah. So I thought about that it's a good time for us to relook at what products we want to bring into the market. For me, I had a bigger team, more focus on keeping a smaller team. It's important that we stay alive during this time. So we've been doing different things, and COVID has made me reset in terms of and refocus on what I really want to do, and realign the brand to our sustainability promises.
Here are some snippets of the 8 Mountains runway collection from Fiji Fashion Week 2019, Moira's 10th year anniversary in the industry. Hanua Lei, meaning land of the good, was accurately depicted in the collection with vibrant colors representing our beautiful Pacific Island richness. Fun fact, if you look closely, you'll notice the flower prints on the garments are designed to look like leis. The Hanua Lei collection was a collaboration between Moira and his sister, who at the time was battling breast cancer. During her battle with breast cancer, Moira's sister would do oil paintings to keep herself busy. These oil paintings were in fact used as the background graphics during the live runway show. From the actual design graphics to the finished product, you are guaranteed exclusivity with a touch of classic Fijian pride. Eight Mountains are also passionate about sustainability because they understand that the marine ecosystem needs champions to create awareness on the amount of pollution and refuse that goes into the sea. Through their fashion platforms, they create space for artisans to continue to work passionately, reviving old weaving and handicraft methods as well. Established designer siblings Moira Solvalu John and David Solvalu boldly represent their Polynesian and Fijian heritage through the recreation of Fijian motifs that whisper a sense of adventure and palace that signify pure Pacific flamboyance. This Fijian designer label always has a black and gold signature piece in every collection. Black to represent the days when they had nothing but a dream, and gold to remind the siblings to forever be optimistic in a competitive industry.
So, I think that a lot of people don't realize that fashion is in fact a business. It's not just the glamour and the shows,
It's the whole production that goes into it, from the design concept, and it doesn't matter if it has to do only with clothing. It's important that fashion brands as well, during COVID, having to reset and do something different to stay alive.
Coming up after the break, we discuss the future of fashion shows.
How do you think fashion shows generally around the world need to respond to what's happening? How do you think that they can do things differently to ensure that they continue to support brands? I understand that Fiji Fashion Week, for which Fiji Television is a media partner, has already started a process of trying to replan the way that they're doing their show this year, which I think is quite admirable, and I think is something that should be celebrated because we're moving into a new era. But how do you think? What advice would you give as a designer?
For fashion, I've noticed a lot of brands starting to bring out more virtual shows online. I think you guys, Zuba, took out something that was on video and then released on Facebook, on Instagram, and that's a really great way of getting people to see what the brand is still doing and create awareness on it. Many fashion shows around the world have gone into something virtual, and I think that can be done. Before, that was not an option. We never really looked into it, but now when we are forced into it, I see a lot of designers starting to do create a new marketing tool for themselves and sort of advertise on that. I think it's encouraging to see the different styles of keeping alive during this time. For myself, I think that fashion shows, for us, we won't do it this year, but we'll do something virtual as well. and release that. The opportunity for a designer to sit back and watch whether a collection will sell is great. You know, usually with the normal catwalk and the runway shows, you actually have to outlay a whole production and then see whether the market likes it. But by then you have outlaid a lot of funds to create it. Whereas the virtual one, you can actually have it and release it and then see how many bookings you get from it. So it kind of saves money for the designer and creates a new way of cost cutting for us, even though it's going to cost a bit in terms of having a graphic designer do the whole virtual work for you.
Their latest 2020 Spring-Summer Hoi collection is inspired by the legend of the turtles of Sol Noho in Chuchurutuma. "10% of the Hoi collection sales will be donated to the Lache Rutuma initiative to help educate the people to preserve and conserve their natural resources and to empower the communities by investing in the protection of language and heritage." Moira's new collection will be called the Hanua collection. It is inspired by the 4 elements of nature: earth, wind, fire, and air. Hanua draws its color palette from the earth itself. When translated into English, Hanua means land. When all these 4 elements of nature combine, it creates a certain unity and balance in energies. It is a grounding energy that will be portrayed in the collection, the beauty and harmony of Hanua. It will have a mixture of ethnic and abstract prints, whilst the contrast prints in the tropical Hanua, a Pacific Islanders version of the ideal Fijian plantation. Keep a lookout for the 8 Mountains 2020 Spring-Summer men's line. You can find out more by visiting 8 Mountains website, 8mountains.com, or visit their retail store, Shop 2, Nende Street, Lautoka.
Tell me now, with your shift in product type, what has the feedback been like?
A lot of it has been positive, a little bit has been negative. The negative doesn't, get to me at all. The positive side of it is that NGOs and different women groups have been able to learn from us, and we have been able to assist the community as well, stay sustainable in alignment with our promise, and be able to help others realize that there are other ways of doing business. And for me, I look at the positive side of things. We have to be optimistic about everything, and we've stayed optimistic as a brand, so we've come out resilient.
Coming up after the break, we talk more to Moira about her passion for 8 Mountains and a young entrepreneur in her house, her son. Fashion has always known how to adapt to the world around it, and that's never been truer than right now. the fashion industry has been negatively impacted by the coronavirus outbreak on every imaginable level. Production has ceased, retailers have closed, demand has plummeted. Retailers are shutting their doors around the world, encouraging their customers to shop online instead. Despite a move to online trade, the fashion industry is still almost entirely dependent on physical retail. More than 80% of transactions in the fashion industry still happen in physical stores. With the recent COVID-19 pandemic, that just was not possible. Changes in social habits such as social distancing were not conducive for the survival of retail, which saw many retail outlets close down. In the Fijian context, a move to purchasing essential items and the cancellation of major events meant that many fashion houses had to rethink the way they did business. At the same time, fashion brands are presented with new opportunities, as some brands shift to making fashionable face masks, for example. 8 Mountains was one of these brands. When it comes to fashion shows, designers have adapted by producing and showcasing their fashion products through streaming presentations online and virtual shows.
Since COVID-19, things have changed for you a little bit.
Yes, a lot.
What has it been like for you? All designers have had a very different experience, of course, but you were one of the first, well, amongst the first designers to release protective gear by way of face masks. And I understand now that you're doing the very good work of producing reusable sanitary pads and reusable diapers.
Yeah. When we heard that COVID was in China, had started out there and the numbers of people were getting sick and all, we thought if it came to Fiji, that we needed to change our business plan. And part of being in the small business community, there's a lot of encouragement from different entrepreneurs on that page. There's a Viber page that we're all members of. And I think Sukia looks after that. And part of it was to reset and refocus on what we need to do as entrepreneurs to stay alive during COVID. And we thought about it, and I said, I want to go back into doing reusables because we have a sustainability promise that's on the wall. And I've never really gone into it because with fashion it's always on the go. And we have to produce different collections, so I didn't get time to focus on other things that help sustainability, especially with wastage. We needed to reduce the amount of wastage, and production in the fashion industry contributes major into wastage.
Yes.
And I thought that as a fashion brand, if we fast forwarded and looked at avenues that would help improve sustainability, then we might as well do it and focus on it. So I went into finding out how to go back and do the menstrual pads that my mom used to make when I was a lot younger. I learned that. The team, so it's a back and forth process with samples, and Marika is also doing the production of cutting. So she does the pattern making as well, and then we give it back to the community, get feedback. So that whole process happens.
So it's essentially product development again.
So we managed to do that, and I'm so thankful that during COVID time, when sales went down on fashion, our sales went up in terms of sustainable product.
Last question about your son.
Yes.
So your son has turned into quite the entrepreneur himself.
Yeah. That's too many years of being dragged around with mom and dad. Yes, he's learned, he's come out with doing his own business. It's to do with iced tea and organic juices. So This all came about with him being bored and then wanting a drink, not finding the drink he wanted. And then he came up to the father and I and said, oh, he wants to open his own business, but it has nothing to do with what we're doing. We were a bit disappointed, but we have to be supportive of him. So he chose to make juice and iced tea. He sells them at Port City, and he paid for his own courses on Leadership Fiji.
That's amazing.
Yes. And as an entrepreneur, it's good for him, a kidpreneur, to learn from us and watch our mistakes as well, because I notice he seems to be a lot smarter about the way he's doing his business. And it's more simple, like mom's in fashion, dad's in valves and pipeline works, and son is doing juice. So a simple product, and he's having the fun of his life learning. And the best part is, he said to me, having to learn, we take his juice to Vote City and he sells it at the flea market there. It's also available at the Navutu flea markets as well. And he says to me, Mom, this is good. I don't need to go back to school because I'm learning amongst all these people how to sell. And I think I don't need to go to school anymore. I just pay for my leadership course, and I'll just stay home and do my juice business.
And how did Mom feel about this?
And I said to him, I don't want to use the exact word, but I said, you're taking your tush back to school. Whether you like it or not, you're reporting back to school on Monday morning. So today, with much hesitation, he has presented himself at class.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that he went back to school at least. But you're a household full of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So you must just be buzzing with ideas and energy constantly.
Yeah, and then I also have my own family and my staff that I look to for inspiration. Everyone's struggling at this time. And for us, just being able to see that we can help others as well in the same process is very rewarding.
Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you're leaving as inspired as I am. Join me again next week for another incredible adventure, more stories, more laughter, and more fun. Until then, take care of yourselves and be kind to each other.